Morning. So we are now at perhaps halfway point of our. Okay, I have no idea what this recording is doing. Is it recording or is it not recording? Went up to 15 seconds, then refreshed on its own and went back to 3 seconds. So I have no idea how this is working. So doesn't work, like set time buttocks. So we're at about a halfway point in what I hope is the last stage of my reactor plan. Hello there, one mysterious person who logs in and then logs out and then still makes comments. Don't know why YouTube doesn't show everybody who's actually watching. It just kind of flashes it and then doesn't show it anymore. I have sometimes 0 watchers and I get comments on my live chat, so that's a little weird. Also, YouTube's been shit, but I hope we're now in the last halfway point of the last test of the reactor model. It does indeed seem like if you trim the store seeds fully and leave a tiny bit of branch and a few leaves at the bottom, it'll start to grow again. But it was starting to make those wood hair things into the ends of the plant. So it's a quest against time at this point to see if it makes it so that it's what's the word? Fully off the flowering part, meaning that it will take almost no sunlight in and will, as a plant, be relatively worthless. Or will it make half leaves and half flower, which would mean that I was right and every single bud grower that I ever talked to was wrong, because they stereotypically kill the entire plant when they harvest it, and I kept saying that that is an inefficient usage of the plant. So if it turns out that it just makes the normal flowering part while it also makes the leaf part, then it will be worth something. If not, then the choices are either to make short-term plants which produce in these conditions minuscule amounts, or hope that you get a hybrid that actually turns into a hybridized female. Because one plant dried of this type in these growing conditions, you'd be lucky to get 100 grams, and you'll be quite lucky if you get 50 grams, and you'll be low. But if the hybrid seeds are tried, it's very hard to get them to the flowering stage, though not impossible. But the 3 month, oh God, I started to get tired just as I started this. But the 3 month variant is what was I gonna say? It's whatever. Either way, it's not enough for me to quit the market and go to my internal reactor on the 3 month seeds if they don't sprout flower. If they do, then it will be worthwhile. By the way, in this particular mode, I really look like the chairman in XCOM. I have this bright light behind me and I'm talking to you about UFOs. Did you know you can capture them for real? I have 10 in my backyard. I keep thinking that you can't work to make your income while high if you have my type of personality. There are people who can work and get drunk, work and get on freaking heroin, but not for me. So it's mildly looking like I need to either figure out why when I'm like floating on my own, why do I have such a strong self-hatred that when I do give myself the liberty to feel good, I don't get my projects done except for the ones that I really, really like the art, which is incredible, by the way, but I like to do it. And I'm just thinking if I quit drugs, tobacco, and keep growing them and do the investment roughly as I outlined it, the plant won't produce even 1,000 a month in terms of income, not even close. I'd be lucky to get 500 a month in income, but if I invest a large amount of my money in starting this life that I've talked about, this come on. Uh, no, I'm not worried that you guys can see that window. They're stupid enough to think nobody's following them on an obvious FBI software. That's entirely on them. Fucking morons doing drug trade online. But I have safe software. I was around doing crime online when you were still gleams in your mother's eye, and I can guarantee you that the internet isn't safe. If you think you can go on a network built essentially by DARPA and CERN and do something illegal without the world exploding on you, then you are truly a moron. Truly a moron. You know why they don't come after you? Because they have calculated every single facet of this economy down to a T. If you want to challenge them on any point, like I'm challenging them, very specifically on the point of drugs and alcohol and such, you need a decade of dedicated work, a support group the size of a nation, and you need the persistence and strength of spirit that Sisu entails to, but is not in Sisu. That is only in the epics of the legends to get the parliament to notice you and make a law as you outline it. It requires absolutely monstrous gargantuan effort because getting them to notice a single individual, whether it is a criminal or a politician, takes more effort than I can ever put into words. More effort than I can ever put into words. And I just don't really understand why people think the internet is a safe place. It's like a gun. It was designed by a military corporation for keeping the network secure, you understand, even in the case of a nuclear war. And you think your hacking tool is enough to keep you hidden from them? No, that's not anywhere near how it goes. It's not anywhere near how it goes. They know every crime that you've ever done. They don't care for the most part. But if you do something to them through that network of crime, then they care. Then they care. Otherwise, you just, one of the taxpayers. And because you live in the country, buy goods in the country, you're considered a taxpayer. And they generally try to avoid killing the cattle that feeds them. Not always, but generally. Like every farmer, there are times when it is necessary to cull your herd, but for the most part, they really don't care. And to be technical, the farmer doesn't kill the herd. He sells it and then it's killed. To be technical. So it looks like we might be approaching the end of the reactor outline test, it appears. I have never seen a store bought or legitimate seed grow to the size that the hybridized bag seeds grow, even with flower. But I must admit that compared to the amount of nutrients, lamps, mulch, etc., that you need, and if you are just looking to farm to make income, then farm to make income instead of anything to do with, say, for example, being allowed to grow one tree, for example, then at a cost analysis, the way of farming that is currently done is probably smarter. But if you're looking to have one tree, as I am, because I want to do this with one tree, I don't need to show you why I'm so attached to just one tree, but I want to do this with one tree. If it works, and it's looking like it works, but it'll take me some more weeks to notice if the plant is just growing like a tiny amount of leaves and then turns back into making the plant material, the flower material. If it does, then its energy usage is so badly functioned or regulated that after you cut it once, you might as well kill the entire plant. In which case, my reactor plan comes down to two choices. Get a sufficiently lucky shot at the seeds to get a type of seed which both pollinates to generate the flower part and then doesn't die when you cut it, which is very unlikely. I have tried this many times, and such seeds to me seem to be beyond the door of the goddesses, in that if you are as a mortal looking for such a bounty, you might as well be looking to win the lottery. You can get it, technically, you can get it, but your probability of getting it is the same as a lottery, basically. So, you know, you do you. At that point, the choice is either to continue going through withdrawals at least like 5 times a month, which for anybody who's gone through withdrawals, and don't tell me weed doesn't cause withdrawals or I'll shoot you with my fucking charbomba. But going through withdrawals 5 times a week for the rest of my life, because I know that if I am to remain high, then I am not going to be able to remain high consistently, because I get the mood of missing not being high, and then I sabotage myself, as my theory goes. So I won't be able to be high. In fact, I'll be most likely more of my time will be spent in withdrawals than being high, so that doesn't seem good. And if I do sober up, which is starting to look more and more likely, especially if these plans don't come to super good fruition, then I have a choice of either growing this plant for the fun part, where I am no longer going to touch it other than like when it's at the end of its growth season, and I think I could put this all in a bag and go sell to somebody for $100 and say good day. I could go to, for example, the local black market. I would go to Wicker, just take a picture of the bag and say I'm selling this for $100. And then I could go home just to grow the plant, because I do know for a fact that I want to retain some level of contact with this plant. The fact that it is the relatively safest, most used, best method to increase your serotonin is very good. But if I do this in that terminology, then I might also wanna grow a coffee plant, which is what I'm also looking at. Keep in mind that I've been a shaman or an alternative healer my entire life, so I'm doing this to build what is often referred to as the medicine bag, so that I know if something happens that I have the ability to provide medicine for people around me should I need it. Currently, your people on this particular planet are mostly addicted to two things: dopamine and serotonin. Some are to morphines and oxycodone and such, but a vast majority are either taking serotonin or dopamine. Tea is, for example, unless it's very bitter black tea, almost always serotonin. Almost always. Any coffee, energy drink, methamphetamines, amphetamines, Ritalin, ADHD meds, tobacco, coffee, black tea, they are all dopamine, all of them. And 90% of drugs are either serotonin or dopamine, and the ones that are morphines or others are very rare. And they're not my usage, because morphine as a painkiller has certain downsides psychologically in what I term the spirit world. And serotonin's downsides as a painkiller is that if you take it to a super large dose, you will have your breathing be difficult. But it works as a painkiller with less side effects than morphine. Especially if you make very strong hash. Though I wouldn't recommend it for most pains to be safe. But yes, that would allow me to have a medicine bag. And I know that there is the components of ayahuasca available online that I might want to get, because one of the components is something that the West purified to be a antidepressant back in the 60s, and it was very powerful antidepressant. It has a secondary, which might be why it was used as an antidepressant, but I think not attribute of boosting any chemical you take ridiculously much, to such a point that if you eat cheese after taking that chemical, there is a possibility of a morphine overdose from the feel-good aspect of cheese. It's that powerful. So that would be, it would be like the booster. So if you have any chemical and you need me to make the chemical stronger, that would allow me to use basically anything from crabgrass to like peanut seeds with that as a mixer to make any kind of chemical that would be stronger than, like, even if you purify it insanely much at pre-industrial levels. And the antidepressant part would be a good idea to have around, just because I had a lot of antipsychotics, which I kind of regret selling, but I did sell them. I am thinking, however, that they are, as long as the dark web functions even partially, very easy to procure. It's the pharmacy of the world. In fact, you do realize that there is a poster from a drug awareness group that offers first aid and healthcare and such in most of these drug selling dark websites. In most of them that I've been to, on almost the very first page is the ad for the local healthcare center, which is usually like bus driven and goes around various cities and has like a drug purity tester, has a sexual transmitted disease tester, has the ability to prescribe you antibiotics for any infections that you have, wound care and such. So, as far as I'm concerned, the officials are very much following the drug trade. Comes down to the fact that am I ready to come out of the cave that I was crawling into like bear after I had my ass handed to me and then torn into several small pieces by my relationship situation, the previous one. Am I ready to crawl out of the bunker? And yes, that whole thing really threw me for a loop. You realize it took me about 2 or 3 years to start seeing women as beautiful after that separation. I remember that I was homeless maybe 6 months after it, and that was never really that hard. I like calling it hard and such, but in reality, it wasn't that hard. It was harder once you get like your good place and back on your feet to adjust back into society. But the actual homelessness wasn't anywhere near as hard as I make it out to be. But in terms of heart health, physically, that was as hard as I make it out. But about 3 years after the separation, which would be about 2.5 years after becoming homeless, I finally started to see women as beautiful. I literally, anytime I saw a woman, they were ugly. There was just nothing beautiful in them. And that's how far into the pain I went. So now that I'm getting to a point where I can converse with them casually, distantly, I'm living at a homeless shelter where there are, in fact, women who, despite being homeless, appear warm to me. They don't appear like I'm looking at the spawn of Satan. They appear warm to me. So I'm thinking I'm not there yet. I recognize there is still a lot of pain in me that I cannot cope with. I realize that most people at this point would have bottled up the anger into a side personality, switched over to a new personality, and gotten into a random relationship and just moved on with their life. But because I don't like to hide from myself, I think is the word. I don't mean offense by saying that, but I don't like the aspect of well, that fucked up. I'll rewrite everything. I don't like that. I wanna keep the good, keep the bad. I wanna remember it all. I wanna be it all, if that makes sense. So from that point of view, most people would have jumped ship or timelines, but I don't feel like it. The most horrifying part is that since I don't like have kids of my own and I'm almost 40, if I want to have kids of my own, I'll need to get together with somebody significantly younger than me or get with one of those. Yeah, I froze my eggs when I was 15. Women. Nature really fucks us up. That's great. Running. I mean, I'm just. At least I now know a lot more about politics and how life is like. In fact, we are. In fact, you can use potato chips to start a grill if you feel like it. I've used it several times. They catch on fire quite well. The hard drive scan. So we scanned your hard drive and we found this star system that has this fog that has to be as small as nanites. If it's grains of sand, it doesn't fit. It has to be smaller than that. That covers about 30% of the sun every 6 months and seems to rotate at its Goldilocks zone's middle around the star. Like, okay, you know what you found? You found me trying to build a Dyson sphere that all my game characters also inhabit. Ah, I'm gonna burn it with fire. You know, I actually deplugged it the second you guys took the laptop or the hard drive. Because us folk out here in space know not to trust humans. Very violent species. Humans have this inbuilt thing to look at the space folk like gods. And then when they don't agree with their philosophy of their gods, then they attack them. We're like, no, you know we make mistakes like anybody else. Ah, it's not a god, it's Satan. Sorry. Yarnos. Year zero. There's actually a case about medieval taxes that's very interesting. There's a story about a village somewhere between two opposing parties, and they were raided by one of the guys who wasn't like technically the owner of the land, but they took like what they wanted. They raided the place. And then when the tax guy showed up, they made a legal claim that the raid constituted that year and actually won that one. Technically proving that in the Middle Ages, getting robbed is a tax deductible activity. So none of the poor rich people in Robin Hood ever lost anything. Write it as a tax off. That's very smart. Robbers came. They took my wife. Now I can get an annulment from the church.
Onion rings and a bottle of wine for the table. White or red? Whichever onion the chef prefers.
Ja. Oh, you can even try my favorite theory here. Have that map on your screen and then disconnect from the internet and it'll run for a while. It's a very interesting discovery. I'm starting to feel like I'm just not just bored of smoking, but of the because I'm a very introverted person, the whole extroversion lifestyle this whole thing brings. I mean, I like talking randomly as much as the next person, but there's a limit. Fucking inch, be honest.